I've never seen a fractional CMO that was a CMO. They were like a middle management marketing professional. I dare you to find me one. It's not going to happen. Look, and I'm not going to name names, but we have some of these owners that are spinning the bullshit of how much of a benefit it is when everybody knows it's retraded in 2 to 3 years. Like, you think they're going to add strategic initiatives and drive up your expenses? No, it's no longer client first, it's customer. And there are certain clients that are very sticky that you will only have the opportunity to acquire through acquisition. You won't be able to get them through like traditional marketing, outbound sales. Just make sure the culture's right. That's the biggest thing. The integration, all that stuff's easy. It just takes time. If you can get to close to that 1 million in EBITDA, you're looking at 4 to 5 generally, and it starts ticking up from there.
Awesome. So Chris, I had you on the podcast, I think it was February last year. And as I just said off camera, it hyped me up so much that I genuinely still talk about it like nearly every other day.
Let's go.
But back then I think you were doing 22 million a year. Now, we're in May 2026. You've now gone and acquired an agency. So first of all, was that on your radar for a long time? What was the whole thought process behind that?
I dabbled in some smaller, I wouldn't call them full-on acquisitions, but I had bought assets from other individuals that were structured with those types of terms. I've explored it. The truth is, I had a relationship with these owners I've had a relationship with them for many years, and they approached me, actually their representative. And so I wasn't actively looking. It was just a great fit. And I can talk about the details, whatever you want to know. But yeah, and it's a great strategy. There's a lot of benefits, I would say, whether it's talent or capabilities from a delivery perspective. There's also something that a lot of people don't talk about. And there are certain clients that are very sticky that you will only have the opportunity to acquire through acquisition. You won't be able to get them through like traditional marketing, outbound sales. Like, they're just so sticky with the existing relationship that you have to obtain it through acquisition.
And so would you say that was one of the biggest levers then for doing that instead of, building, kind of just continuing what you're doing with rankings, continuing that outbound, continuing that, like what was attractive to the likes of Gladiator?
Yeah, the biggest thing is Adam and Lisa had built a great company. They amazing client service. I don't think you could find a review that was negative. It was 5.0. I don't even think it was a 4.9. It was 5.0 across the board. And we treasure our reputation. It's one of the things that we track on our scorecards, our leading indicators, lagging indicators is reputation. Thankfully, now with the LLMs and how they've emerged and the AI, it's really impacted our success there too. But so, that was great operators, good humans. We've had a relationship with them, and they had the same capabilities. They were on, there was different integration, not issues, but challenges. But they had the same capabilities, and they really valued client service. So it was a great fit.
Awesome. And what had to be true for rankings before you were able to do this? Financially, operationally, leadership level, before you could do a deal like this?
Oh, it's a really good question. The first thing is we have a great CFO with a lot of experience with financing and M&A, and really knows how to evaluate and structure a deal. The other thing too is, even with the CFO, me as the owner, it's like, like there's this trust, and he hadn't worked for me for a long period of time. So I could go to ChatGPT or Claude or what have you, and I could ask it questions and basically try to determine if it was a good deal structure through the LLMs. And that really helped too. Also, just things to ask before an LOI submitted, things to look for in your due diligence checklist, like all of that was readily available through ChatGPT. I think that's the LLM I use. I'm more of a Claude guy now, or Gemini, but I think I was using ChatGPT during this transaction.
Awesome. And so you've been building rankings for, I think it's come up to 14 years now. Was there a
Mhm.
specific moment where you knew that, acquisition was a smart move?
Yeah. So back to your original, our we did this to an SBA loan. So just by the nature, and I'm not going to talk about the actual total, but just by the nature of being an SBA loan, it kind of gives you an idea. The Now that we've established a long history in our books, like, quality of earnings and everything are tight, we now have approach and we have a bigger banking relationships. It's not just the local bank. We have the ability to use leverage based upon our history and everything that we've done. Um, so this one was done through SBA, but now we have the ability to lever up. I mean, it's a very small percentage of leverage that we use. It's actually very low. It's not something we're at. Like, I don't have an M&A team. It's not something we're actively pursuing. There's a reason for it, in my opinion. Like, private equity in our space, there's Herringbone, there's Everservice, there's, in the legal space, these are the two big ones that are buying up everybody, and they're kind of competing for these, I would say, minimum $2 million EBITDA companies and up. And so it's just like, instead of like competing in that space, it's something we're just not actively pursuing unless it just makes. Having said that, we do have an LOI out right now, but it's because it was such a, so for this to come out in the future, possibly, if everything goes through, but it's just because this one we're pursuing is just such a perfect fit. But it's not like we're actively looking all over the place. It just kind of landed in our lap, similar to the previous one.
Awesome. And Chris, where does your headspace have to be when you're looking at something like this? Because again, from
Mhm.
speaking to you, I know you're so narrow focused on your goals.
Yeah.
Does it originally look like a distraction? Like where does your headspace have to be?
Just so I don't have hobbies. Business is my hobby, right? And it just has to make sense, just like anything. When you look at the cash on cash returns versus this, or your own inbound or outbound efforts, it has to make sense financially. And if you're going to do real estate, a good, like, switching industries, if you're going to do real estate, a good return, a great return is getting your cash on cash returns in 3 to 4 years. If you can do it in less time, do an agency, then it's a good investment, because I can't deploy my capital into another vehicle and get the same type of return. And there's, like I said, there's talent acquisition too, right? You get some key employees, and because every agency has, not every, but many agencies have like some top talent. They've just had more opportunities to lead and grow, and people get developed at different rates of time, and so there's that aspect too.
Awesome. And okay, so you mentioned that Gladiator came to you. You guys had a relationship before. In terms
Mhm.
of rankings and your own due diligence, like what kind of things are you looking at? Client concentration risk, owner dependent revenue. What are those things that you're looking for?
I think it's pretty standard on what most people look at. We look at retention. Want to make sure that the churn's not very high. We want to look at client concentration. If you're an agency, we don't provide exclusivity, because we don't restrict our clients' ability to grow. Like, we work with some very big PI firms, and they want to open offices everywhere. So by that nature, we can't do exclusivity. It's it's the smaller agencies offer exclusivity because they're marketing to just one city. Now we do have segmented account management, segmented data and strategy, segmented delivery, and we do all of those things. And we also cap markets too, because we want to be able to deliver results. We don't want to compete against ourselves. So we do all those things. We even have an arch enemy clause where the biggest of the big firms can name their direct competitors. It's a very clean way to do, like, a DNC, do not contact. So we do those things, but uh, geographic exclusivity, how aggressive are they? Because detangling it, anytime you detangle exclusivity, it's value, perceived value, they think they're losing. So you got to combat that. Client concentration. So then there's service concentration, like what percentage of revenue is from search or paid or design. You want to look at recurring revenue versus project based. Then there is tenure of employees. Like, how long have the employees been there? Is it just like they're turning over their staff and they don't have that knowledge, the industry specific knowledge? That can also kind of be a telltale sign in terms of culture. Um, yeah, those are some of the main things. You want to look at their results, their contracts, like of the contracts, how are they worded? Can there be a transfer of ownership? Um, do they have contracts? Are the contracts being abided by? Is there legal liability? Now, I know there's ways to kind of limit that, but that can kind of hit you in the future. All those different things. There's also what's their revenue, right? Because our average deal size is one certain level, and we know what we can do with that versus like what they're charging, right? How squeezed are they from the margins? Like, where can we add value? How are they acquiring clients? Are they doing inbound marketing or demand gen stuff? Are they going to conferences? Are they doing outbound sales? So it's like looking for all the areas to provide value, but also mitigate risk.
Awesome. I find all that so interesting. Like, I'd love to just get like a hot seat on what all goes into that. How long from first proper conversation till hands were shaking?
Gosh, it took a little bit longer because we had for this one it was for the SBA took a little bit longer than we would like. So I'm not sure. Maybe after LOI, and I could be totally wrong here. Maybe it was like 4 months. So it was longer than what we wanted. Normally I'd want 60 to 75 days in due diligence, but but it also, like, this was a strategic, acquisition. It was like they came to us, and it wasn't like they were shopping a whole bunch of dealers. So they were patient, and we communicated all those things, and we kept them in the loop on everything. So now that we have the banking like, that's one of the things that I would recommend. If you're going to do M&A, have established means of getting capital in advance before you start pursuing this, and don't just, but we weren't looking for it. So that's the thing, is because we weren't looking, we had to reactively go get, better means of capital. Like, I had a decent amount of capital on the balance sheet, but I didn't want to deploy that. That's like my safety net. And there's strategies around that in terms of taxes and things too.
Awesome. And in terms of valuation, because you hear agency owners throwing around numbers all the time, it's a 4 times what their revenue is, or just kind of made up numbers. Like, you've just mentioned, I don't know, 15 different things that you had to look at in this. Did you bring in, did the bankers, did they bring in like a valuation expert, or how did that work?
They were working with a professional that had, a multiple that they wanted to get. I would just say in general, if you can get to close to that 1 million in EBITDA, you're looking at 4 to 5 generally, and it starts ticking up from there, based upon the bottom line number. There are some exceptions where you would do top line, but generally it's just going to be on EBITDA. It's going to be anywhere from 4 to 6, maybe for 1 million to maybe 3, and then we'll just keep going from there. But again, it's really what makes sense for both parties.
Have you had anybody offer to buy you guys out?
Oh, we've had a bunch, yeah. We're not looking to sell. I also just think that in our space, it's like everybody is selling, so it creates an opportunity. It is now an opportunity for me. It is, because it's like we get constantly in the sales process. Oh, you're the only one. You're the only one that's left. It's like, yeah. The reality is, look, and I'm not going to name names, but we have some of these owners that are spinning the bullshit of how much of a benefit it is when everybody knows it's retraded in 2 to 3 years. Like, like, you think they're going to add strategic initiatives and drive up your expenses? No, right? You're not. It's going to be retraded, so there's going to be an ownership turnaround again, and then then it's like, okay, well, is there a culture fit for this entity? What is the integration going to be this next time? They're going to be all the contract changes. Because the problem is the incentive structure, everything's driven off of incentives. It's no longer client first, it's customer, right? It's instead of the widget, it's widget versus client, right? It's client centric. I as the owner can make terrible financial investments to make someone happy. I can comp your entire year, and I can do that to preserve my reputation, blah, blah, blah. But now when you have investors and a board, they're not going to easily do that. Do you think your contracts are going to be structured to get out of when you go sign a year-long contract? Like we have all month to month. They're not going to take these giant experiments to improve the value of the agency because they are on a clock. They're going to retrade 3-4 years. Gonna happen. That's the model. They got to get all that debt off the balance sheet. They got to retrade. They buy something for a 5 to 7, and they retrade for an 10 or higher. Once they hit their threshold, based upon what type of PE it is.
Yeah. Again, it's so interesting. I had Ron Fishkin on a while back, and again, he was similar. I think he sold, I think it was, I can't remember how much to PE or VC, and he just said it turned into like a full-time job, and he just fell out of love with the business. And you hear stories like that all the time. I think he actually wrote a book on it as well.
Read it, yeah.
But yeah, super interesting. And then, so the previous owner at Gladiator, are they still on, or what does that look like?
No, and here's the thing. Like, it makes sense if people have that next thing and they want to exit, they want to take risk off the table, and I'm happy for those individuals. And by the way, those individuals, if they wanted to come back, they're listening, absolutely have a place. They're great leaders. But I would say, like, that's the reality, is people want an exit. Now on the opposite end, these law firms, there wasn't really an opportunity to have an exit event until the MSO model, till the ABS, and now there can be, everyone had to have strategies around succession because these firms are trading at a 2.5 to 4.5 multiple, and now MSO comes around and, oh surprise, here's a 7 to 7.5. Okay, and everyone's hating on it, but I guarantee some of these legacy firms aren't hating on it because they're going to get a 7 or 7.5.
Yeah. And okay, so if we talk about the actual transition then, Chris, when you first, I think it was on LinkedIn, I congratulated you on it, and we were chatting about it. And I joked with my team when I told them, and because we've obviously worked with you before, we know like how high your standards are when it comes to hiring and everything. And we kind of joked about, imagine this agency was like, a tick box agency. People are just like having a chill time. And then Chris Dreyer and his team come in, and it's like, whoa, what's going on here? So how did you make sure, that the culture was going to be a match for rankings? And yeah.
That's tricky, right? So first, I had the same values as the previous owners, so that's why it was a good fit. The truth is, transparently, I would say we did have some employee turnover. We did. We have different processes in terms of content, so we had to change the content team around a little bit, right? There were some of the employees that didn't like change. They couldn't adjust to the new system. A couple of those, like, we gave them the opportunities, right? And we had I can't remember the exact metric that we track, but it's like, how you track voluntary and involuntary churn. It's like voluntary and involuntary employee churn. So we track that. So, they wanted to go to a different, we changed, like, their account management was different, right? They had account managers also doing project management work. Well, we have account managers and project managers, so some of those changed. Some of they were on, I believe, what was it? Reich. We're on ClickUp. There's an adjustment there, and like uncomfortableness. Our knowledge base is Notion. I think their stuff was in Reich as well, or Google Docs. So, a lot of our processes too, like we track speed on everything, and it gets uncomfortable when you're pushed, right? But you look at Hormozy, right, on the denominator of the value equation, the the very the bottom is, can you do it faster? That's more value. Can you make a website faster? Can you create content faster? That's like the best way and easiest way to create more value for the client. Instead of it taking X amount of results to get a case, can you shorten that? Like, what's the first moment you can deliver a case?
Awesome. And okay, so from that experience, was there any lesson that, let's say you were going into it again, that you would have done differently, or you and the team would have, taken out for the next one?
It's tricky. This one went pretty smooth. I'm not gonna lie. I probably would have done some client interviews, cherry picked a few to talk to. We had some strategic churn, like they were just too low. And when we made adjustments to their price that hadn't been adjusted, there's some risk there of negative reviews and negative sentiment, and so we probably would have done a little bit more there. But honestly, this one went pretty smooth. I think that the most challenging part is the culture part. It's like, and we've got some great employees that are thriving, and that, I think that's, you get these assets. Like, it'd be very challenging to go find these employees. Like, and look, this is the name of the game. Like what you do, right? It's finding the A plus talent. It's hard. And this was a means of us getting some talent that we weren't expecting, but was very, it was very beneficial.
Awesome. And okay, so we've talked about employee, the culture transition, everything. And you lightly mentioned there about client side. How did you communicate that to the clients at Gladiator?
One by one, down the line. The owner, Adam Draper, was very involved with that. Lisa Vaughn was very involved in that. We wanted to make it seamless. And so just went down the line and started dividing and conquering. And, they stayed very close to ensure that the service quality maintained or improved. That was the standard. And that's what we did. And retention's great. The involuntary churn, is that the involuntary churn? No, the voluntary churn was very low. So yeah, that's what we did.
Awesome. And take me through, Chris, please, like the brand strategy behind it. Did you keep up Gladiator as a brand? I think I tried to look you guys up, and it redirects to rankings.io homepage. So, bring us through the whole site migration, everything.
Yeah, that was a tricky part. So there's a lot of strategies on brand architecture, right? A branded house or a house of brands, right? It's you can be, say, I'm trying to give an example, like a Marriott that has a whole bunch of brands, an LVMH, right? Or you're like a branded house, Disney, that just owns everything. Now, I know there's some sub brands like, Star Wars, but anyways, the strategy there, at first we were considering keeping it and segmenting all PI to rankings and non-PI to Gladiator. Ultimately, when we changed the back end, the tech stack and everything, they didn't have a lot of their client acquisition was from going to conferences. There wasn't a big inbound engine. They didn't have an outbound sales team. So to keep it segmented, it would have required a big expenditure on our part. We had to hire, a handful of more leaders. had to basically develop the brand and expand the brand into its own, funnel. And so ultimately, we just decided to merge. Although we talked about it for a period of time, we were like, hey, let's keep it segmented. Let's do PI just for rankings. Let's do non PI for Gladiator. Um, and who knows? Like, I could see us working with an agency in the future that maybe has a focus on family law, or the lower end market, where we would keep it segmented, but for this one, the investment would have been very high to keep it segmented.
Perfect. And okay, so Chris, your overall lesson from the whole thing. So if you're doing the same thing again, what was the biggest lesson from it?
Just make sure the culture's right. That's the biggest thing. The integration, all that stuff's easy. It just takes time. Um, just the culture, that's the most important part, because if the employee culture is similar to yours, you know that they're treating the client in a similar vein, right? So that experience with the client, they're trying to maintain that as well. So I think everything starts there. But just tactically, I would have had financing done in advance. Maybe you're an agency that's been around for 8 to 10 years. I would think about getting a bigger banking relationship now. Maybe a large line of credit. See what your borrowing power is when one of these comes around. Thankfully, I had the relationship with Adam and Lisa, but had I not, I might have lost the deal because it went a little bit longer.
Awesome. And for an agency owner that, let's say they're thinking about buying, so you just mentioned the having a relationship with your banking. Is there anything else that they should look at internally from their own agency before they even start looking?
I mean, you need a good head of finance. It doesn't have to be in house, but it's very helpful if it is. If you have an internal CFO can understand where the value can be created too. Can help you with the data, extracting the data, asking all the questions around KPIs and all the metrics based things that you need for the LOI and due diligence. I would say I wouldn't try to do that outsource. I think that would be very pricey. I would try to wait until you have that established person in house.
Awesome. And what's next in the next 12 months for rankings and you?
Oh boy, we got a bunch. Let's see here. Well, I mean, we're in the process of expanding our service lines, right? We have to adjust. We're trying to lean more into social. We're trying to lean more into paid, whether it's Facebook ads, YouTube ads, expanding our media, right? So we've really expanded PIMCon. We got a magazine now for PIM. We have a newsletter that's like a legit newsletter, not just one that's like a curated, throw some blogs up there, right? It's like morning brew style that we're putting a lot of effort into. Yeah, and just continuing to try to provide the best results for the clients ultimately. I think the thing that's happening now that's increasing churn in our space is a lot of individuals are bringing stuff more in-house. There was this fear of uncertainty. There's no, now they have access to knowledge and general intelligence, right? So I used to think my biggest competitors were, your Hennessy Digital, which they're not a competitor anymore, right? Because they are for the short term, for the next 2 to 3 years until they're retraded, right? So I got to worry about that. But then there's like the lead gen companies. It's like an alternative means to solving the problem they're trying to obtain clients, right? So that's like competitor number 3. But really, the biggest competitor that I see is firms choosing to take their initiatives in house. So that percentage has increased. So I actually think that's our biggest competitor now, is we have to show how much value we can provide by being their outsourced partner, as opposed to them being able to consider taking it in house.
And that's across all teams, is it? SEO, paid, the whole thing that you're seeing that?
Yeah, I see it across the board, really.
Interesting. Yeah, because we see a lot of our clients, they're starting to offer like fractional CMO positions where the founder will go in. Come on,
God,
what have you got to say about that?
I mean, I literally wrote on my phone, and I was thinking about doing a blog post about this, and you hit one on me. Let me see what I wrote here. I gotta find it. It's basically, have you ever seen, like, anytime I see a fractional CMO, the first thing I do is I go look their LinkedIn profile, and I've never seen a fractional CMO that was a CMO. They're like a middle management marketing professional. I've never seen a CMO out of business and then go be a fractional CMO. It just doesn't happen. It's like, let me get a title increase. I was a director of marketing. I'm going to call myself a fractional CMO. It's like, it's very problematic in the space. It drives me insane. Like, look, for those listening, please, who's the needle in the haystack that was a CMO that is now a fractional CMO? I dare you to find me one. It's not going to happen. It doesn't happen.
Okay. I look forward to seeing that blog post. You mentioned service offerings, Chris. So, SEO is your bread and butter. It's been for the last 14 years. Are you guys offering GEO as a added service? Are you pricing it more than the SEO services? Where's your head at with all of that?
Yeah, I think a lot of look, I know that Google came out with their whole statement, which is, a lot of it was bullshit, but that's this, and literally, can we get Matt Cutts to come back? Can I do a survey? John Mueller, you got to go. A lot of our SEO and what we do lends itself to LLM. So there are some initiatives that we have to focus on a little bit differently. So it's in the same core offer, but now we're putting a bigger focus on LSA. Like, do any query right now, the very best virtual real estate is LSA. Below it, Google Ads. Now you've got demand gen and their capabilities of doing ads in the maps. Then it goes traditional search, and then you got some forum UGC stuff. So that's kind of the virtual real estate on Google. But then I've got my own theories and hedges on the social side. Gemini, from Google's perspective, being trained on YouTube and YouTube Shorts, right? So it's important to be there, and also YouTube TV being a competitor to TikTok. So it's very important to be there. And then there's LinkedIn and its relationship with Microsoft and OpenAI. So if anybody Googles their name as an attorney, it's more important than ever to have a profile and a presence at LinkedIn. Grok and X, of course. But then you have, all the relationships with, Manus and that, the block that's trying to happen there, and Reels and Facebook's relationship there. So the social side is becoming more important in how they're training their models. I've seen less of Reddit being like the number one, number two result for everything on Google, because they have alternative means to training their models. So that's just kind of the future. And but basically our offer has changed from just search, but it's now SEO, GEO, LSA, and Google search. Kind of, that's like tier one.
Yeah. So what I got there from you is that it's search everywhere is kind of what.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think Neil Patel, he nailed it first with search everywhere optimization. It really is. Everything's so fragmented. Back in the day, there was broadcast television, Facebook, and Google. Well, now there's broadcast television, streaming, connected TV. Now you got, Google and all the LLMs, and now you got an abundance of social media platforms. So it's attention's fragmented, and you gotta be able to adapt. I was just listening to this podcast I've been listening to lately on how to SaaS. And one of the things I wrote down, let me find it, is basically a company's ability to absorb change. This one PE company was like, what's their ability to absorb change, right? How open are they going to be to value creation, changing tech stacks and things like that? And that's an interesting lens to look at when you're thinking about buying a company.
Yeah. And I think again, it just goes into how important it is your knowledge base is for your company as well. Because again, a lot of the people you see using AI, they're bought in on, let's just say at the start of this podcast, you talked about ChatGPT and you moved over to Claude. But most people just start from scratch. They'll move over to Claude and they've got zero left. Like I'm fighting with Manus at the minute. We went through a merge, changed my emails, and all my stuff in Manus isn't there. But luckily, I've got it all stored on Obsidian, my second brain, where I'm able to take it elsewhere. Hopefully, Manus restore it for me. But yeah, I think there's so much low-hanging fruits as well, especially YouTube. You mentioned there. I did a video, how to hire the right SEO or something, and it was like did all the SEO research before we did it, and like it's outranking SEMrush on like certain things.
Nice.
And it's just crazy like how strong YouTube can be. But like as you know it, like you're everywhere. I see you everywhere. It just takes a lot of mental bandwidth to keep it going and stay consistent.
Yeah. I mean, that's the biggest thing is just keep doing a little bit more each year and try to explore opportunities. And then you have the capital to deploy and take these bets. And some of them have been colossal failures, but some of them hit, and you kind of learn from those failures and keep going.
Awesome. Well, Chris, I love watching you from the sidelines. You really, really motivate me. For anybody else that wants to follow you along, where can they find you?
Yeah, I'm most active on LinkedIn. Or if you guys have questions, you just want to email me, it's chris@rankings.io.
Thanks for sticking around to the end, and I really hope you enjoyed this episode. If you're an agency owner that is wanting to scale and wants to continue bringing your business to new heights and doesn't want to put everything on pause for hiring and finding the best talent that's out there in SEO and paid media, well, that's something I can help with. I own a recruitment company that has specialized in both the SEO and paid media sector, and we work with 100 plus businesses. So I'm going to leave 2 links below. There's no big pitch here, but if you want to talk over strategy and hiring and how myself and my team can find you the best A-player talent in both the SEO and paid media sector, then please book in, and I look forward to talking to you. Thank you.